As a native Honduran, now living in Ireland, I've had the opportunity to work in a country where research is nascent, and also in countries with advanced research institutions. Importantly, this raised my awareness of the diverse skills that researchers need to thrive in environments with very different social, cultural, and economic backgrounds. I have also witnessed that when we look for jobs, funding, or promotions, we're all evaluated as if we followed a career path that only fits the reality of a very small group of people. Now, by limiting the opportunities to those who do not fit this mold, these practices could be limiting diversity in academia. In this regard, a vast body of evidence has found that diverse research environments increase creativity, innovation, and problem solving, ultimately benefiting research. Now, if that is the case, why and how are current research assessment practices limiting diversity? And if so, what can we do differently?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my great honor to present here. I am Boon Han Lim, an alumnus of the Global Young Academy, GYA. I'm also an associate professor at University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia. I would like to share our findings on assessment in career progression, influencing diversity and inclusion in academia. It is also part of our project Global View of Institutional Promotion Criteria for Professorship, conducted under the Scientific Excellence Working Group of the GYA. We as a researcher is always assessed for our performance by our institution. Assessing the performance is believed to be vital for upholding the highest standards of quality, and that selective processes drive the progress. Now, the widespread of using biometrics have given rise to the popular perception of a universal research assessment system, but does this match the reality? If so, we, the Scientific Excellence Working Group at the GYA, ask ourselves, how can researchers navigate the assessment landscape? To what extent can they put their specific skills, creativity, and initiative to good use? Are the applied research assessment criteria fit for the purpose of fostering strong teams at an institution and promoting trustworthy research in a diverse global research ecosystem? More specifically, we wonder, how do different institutions define excellence, and how does that definition impact the career path of early career researchers? What competencies universities appreciate in their academic staff? Are these the same in different world regions? How do these criteria differ? Do researchers need to swim with the stream, or how can they stand out? How do assessment practices for career progression influence the state of diversity and inclusion in academia? Again, are the applied research assessment criteria fit for the purpose? To answer the questions, a global analysis is essential. We think GYA is the most appropriate academy to conduct the analysis because GYA is a network of young science researchers from over 100 countries with diverse culture, academic backgrounds, disciplines, and experiences. For such global analysis, we set to perform an objective analysis of the competencies that researchers are evaluated. We investigated the promotion criteria to the full professorship used by various institutions across the globe, far beyond those studies which are too prevalent focused on Western Europe and North America. In addition, to avoid perception bias, we focus on compiling and collating data from policy documents, that is, the hard evidence, instead of using the questionnaires and interview. Between the years 2018 to 2021, we collected 238 promotion policies from 141 institutions and 56 countries. The map here shows the number of institutions in each region where we sourced the document. Briefly, the work presented here was facilitated by the GYA membership. Members and alumni from the different world regions were asked to provide evidence of the criteria erected by their universities or national governmental bodies for the promotion to professorship. The documents collected were subjected to a round of filtering where they were screened for completeness and pertinence. Then they were categorized by their source, such as country, types of institution, disciplines, and others. The information of the documents were then translated to English, tabulated and branded for its analysis to build a blind dataset enabling quantitative analysis. Finally, the principal component analysis and descriptive statistics results were tested for significance and plotted. Most promotion policy mention three common categories of promotion criteria. They are research, teaching, and services. Research criteria can generally be subcategorized into research outputs, career development, and recognition. Together with teaching and services, which as seen in this table, were mentioned in most policy documents. Examples of research outputs are like number of publications, citations, journal impact factors, authorship position. An example of career development and recognition are like collaboration, membership in professional organization, presentation abroad, experience abroad, awards, and keynote speech. Teaching, the main criteria is the teaching task, while for services, there are administrative work, community service, professional service to industry and public service, and mentoring. In the global analysis, we try to answer the following questions. Overall, which criteria are most frequently sought from researchers? How frequently are these criteria not mentioned? How similar or diverse are desired career profiles? Do these vary between governmental and research and teaching institutions? Let's see the prevailing criteria worldwide. Globally, research outputs are required in all policies, followed by teaching, which is the fundamental role scope in the academic track. Award, administrative work, mentoring, professional services, community service, and obtaining funds were also prevalent criteria, mentioned in about 60 to 70% of the document collected. The other criteria mostly rates lower than 36%. The low frequency indicates the diverse attention being paid globally. When we zoom in into the criteria for assessing the achievements of researchers' publications, in general, quantitative methods or bibliometrics are used more frequently than qualitative methods to assess the research outputs of an academic. Among these, the most prevalent were the number of publications, 63%. The second liner, such as publishing in the high journal impact factor journals and the number of patents, achieved merely below 50%. All these three of them are assessed via metrics. Interestingly, some criteria we may think of frequently here to be crucial for promotion to the professorship in our institutions. Example, achievement of citation index and publishing in high journal impact factor journals show actually less than 45%. It indicates that either these criteria are not mentioned globally or they are not formally mentioned in our institution policy. Instead, they are practiced as a norm during an assessment or just self-perceived criteria of the assessment panel. Besides, we can also notice that some criteria appear even though they are not mentioned in our working environment. It shows some diverse requirements globally, and definitely this analysis broadens our knowledge of the promotion criteria globally. How about comparing the use of assessment methods between institutions and governments? The use of metrics for assessing a researcher's output prevail over the qualitative assessment in both governmental and research and teaching institutions. The qualitative method has less than one-third of the mentions in the governmental policy. This scenario can be explained as the government does not have sufficient time to use qualitative methods, hence advocating for metrics which is believed to be objective. However, some governments set the policy that all federal universities must follow governmental criteria, and then the metric-oriented criteria are spread to the institutional level. The radar map compares the detailed criteria stated by institutions and governmental bodies. Both emphasize on research outputs and teaching. Governmental policies mention moderately on the mentoring. The rest of the criteria are below 40%. On the other hand, the institutional policy give more focuses to services, recognition, and funding. In the previous two slides, we knew that behavioral metrics are highly preferred in assessing research outputs. This radar map tells us in further. Government policy favor metrics like publishing in high journal impact factor journals. Obviously, non-metrics method to assess the quality of publications or journals and the real impact of the publications significantly less mentioned. On the other hand, institutions may use additional metrics like the number of citations and authorship order in the assessment of candidates. Besides global analysis, we did the regional analysis, which aims to find out the answers for the following question. Do approaches to research assessment and competencies sought from researchers different across various countries and regions? Are there notable differences between the global north and the global south, and or with the economic status of a country? The bar chart shows a two-dimensional comparison of institutional versus governmental policies and bibliometrics versus qualitative assessment of promotion criteria related to research publication. On the institutional policies, it is evident that Global South institutions rely more on bibliometrics than those in the Global North. Contrarily, in the Global North, institutions include a higher number of qualitative and impact criteria in their assessment. However, the governments here rely more heavily upon the use of metrics. We also perform a principal factor analysis of the various documents to understand if there is a correlation between the single policy. We find that a high percentage of the observed variance between policies can be explained by four latent factors that we interpret as quality of the candidate, which are mostly assessed by qualitative criteria, professional development of the candidate, impact metrics, and accumulated outputs. We then look at the distribution of these factors, summarized by these Wiley plots as shown in the slide. Documents of high-income countries mention the quality of candidate most frequently. This factor loses relevance as country income becomes smaller. Upper middle income country rely on impact metrics more than the other countries. Lower middle income countries emphasize professional development and accumulated outputs the most. Comparing assessment methods, institutions from middle income countries shows the highest reliance on metrics for promotion assessment. In contrast, only upper middle income countries' government policies greatly emphasize bibliometrics in assessing research outputs. Interestingly, governmental policies of high-income countries show the lowest reliance on qualitative methods, whereas it is the other way round for their institutional policy. Nonetheless, even low-income countries emphasize qualitative methods more than the middle income. We believe many researchers would also be interested to know if current assessment practices consider the difference in the competencies and skill sets needed to pursue different scientific disciplines. Do they consider the different lines of training and career paths that will provide the best discipline-specific professional development? Do they reflect the diversity of thought? From all the documents we analyzed, 57% of the policies collected are not drawn to adapt a specific discipline. Hence, we denote them as the general policies. For the policies referring to a specific discipline, we group them into 4 disciplines: natural sciences, engineering and technology, medicine and health sciences, and finally, social sciences and humanities. Our analysis shows a striking scenario that all 4 disciplines and general policies are pretty much the same for the promotion criteria of research and services categories like research outputs, career development, recognition, and services. Even with detailed criteria analyzed, as shown by the heat map, they exhibit a similar distributions of color depth across the discipline. You can see that the research outputs, funding, awards, and mentoring are relatively paid attention to. From the promotion criteria of assessing research outputs, all specific disciplines demonstrated a high reliance on metrics, with medicine and health sciences having a slightly higher frequency of qualitative methods. Even the general policies, as shown in the chart on the right-hand side, also pay great attention to bibliometrics. After seeing the results from the global, regional, and disciplinary analysis, they induce us to ask more questions. What kind of excellence do promotion criteria reflect? How can we define excellence and adapt assessment practice to better meet its purpose? What changes can be implemented in the current evaluation system to support the career development of early career researchers? We observe some diversities and similarities across the board in the analysis. As we know, diversity is a key asset of human society. How do we avoid research assessment creating conformity pressure rather than fostering creativity and initiative, leading to the efficient teams that build on complementary expertise and attitude? How can we promote these changes, especially by having more inclusion criteria for research assessment? Before ending, I would like to acknowledge our team members who have contributed a lot to this analysis, as well as all GYA members and their networks who help to source the promotion policies globally. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
My interpretation of the results presented by Professor Han Lim is that research assessment might be driven more by countries' research policy than by cultural and scientific debates. For example, I was expecting much larger differences between disciplines, and instead we found significant differences by the economic status of countries. More in general, the factor analysis shows that the documents we analyzed tend to cluster into well-defined policies that correspond to broad categories that we were already expecting a priori, such as impact metrics or quantitative methods of assessment or accumulated output. My interpretation is that national policies or institutions tend to have very specific documents in which, rather than asking a little bit of everything, maybe to form a general idea of a candidate, they tend to focus on a single dimension that they want to privilege. In other words, research assessment is very much hierarchical and top-down. This creates a risk insofar as both metrics and qualitative methods often ignore the diversity of researchers, diversity in backgrounds and career paths, but also, I think we don't discuss enough about it, diversity in methods and ideas. So my question for the panel is, don't current practices of research assessment risk pushing towards homologation and conformism? And how can we correct and design better practices, trying to respect and even foster diversity of career paths and pluralism of ideas?
Good day. Following on these findings, researchers, in particular early career researchers, need to be granted equal opportunities when it comes to accessing and applying for grants, awards, fundings, bursaries, and memberships, especially to those who are leading their way into new geographical areas, as this will support the development of global research communities. Sometimes this becomes very untenable on the part of institutions as they themselves are governed with national policies and regulations. In such cases, the research agendas need to be remodeled to include geographically transitioned early career researchers into pooled funding mechanisms with access to centralized facilities. This will certainly boost the confidence of early career researchers to venture into the unknown with courage and creativity, as well as providing them with a better chance to progress along the promotional criteria, as set by their respective institutions. Reassuring and long-term retaining of a full-time member of staff by providing equal opportunities to competitive applications will immensely help them in realizing their local context and globally important academic research. At this worldwide meeting of Young Academies, we propose collaborative and collective global approaches to maximize our joint efforts, especially among early career researchers. Thank you.